Hey guys, today I'm going to be going over the installation of the spring kit from Sprinco. You can see Sprinco right there. This is for the PPQ line of pistols. You can check it out at sprinco.com is where these these trigger kits are sold for the PPQ line. Basically what you get in the kit is you get a spring kit with two springs in it. You have a larger spring and a smaller spring. The larger spring is going to be your trigger return spring, and the smaller spring is going to be your firing pin safety block spring. The tools that you need to do this are some kind of hook device. Makes it a little bit easier to get the trigger return spring off of its two little catches, and some type of small pokey thing. Basically just to be able to take your slide apart, and that's what I use this little Allen key for. This particular PPQ right here, this is a 4-inch, pulls at just about 5 pounds on every pull for this gun. We're going to go ahead and replace the springs and see what we get out of it. So here we go. Make sure it's clear and empty. Take this pistol down, and right on top here is the trigger return spring that you can see, and that's this little guy right here. Basically, if you're holding the gun in a firing position, you slide the back of the spring off to the right hand side of the gun. Let's see if I can just hook it there, and that's it. It just pops off the trigger bar right here. You can see just pops off that little guy, and then it goes up to the front here where it's actually hooked around the front of the I think this is like the sear cage or the fire control housing or something like that. You just unhook it from the front there. It literally just sits over the front. Let me get this off here. You can see this little spring right here has got a little hook on the front of it, and it just hooks over the front of this block right here. So set that bad boy aside, grab your parts kit, get the new one out. This is the new one right here. You can see it. Same deal. You just rehook the hook over the front part of that housing there. It just snaps into place. Lift up on your trigger bar so you can see it in the back here, and then just hook the loop in the back, and slip it on there just like that. Make sure there's a little notch in the back of the trigger bar here. Just make sure the loop of the spring is just sitting in that notch, and that's it. That part of it's done, and we'll move on to the actual slide. Set that aside, take this apart, and you're just basically just doing a full strip of your slide to get the firing pin safety block spring out, which sits underneath this little guy right here. You can see it kind of depresses up and down, and that spring that sits behind there is the one that you're going to be replacing with the spring that they give you. So just take down your slide, push this little tab in the back, slide the back plate off, slide the firing pin assembly out, and then push down on this little retaining pin right here, which holds in your extractor. So push that down, it'll pop out just slightly. You don't have to take it all the way out, you can just move it far enough to the side where everything pops out like that. Make sure you hold your thumb over top of this so that way it doesn't pop out on you like it just did with me. Alright guys, I found the firing pin safety block that went flying when I took it all apart there in the original spring. So basically, how I left the slide is like this. I always usually leave the extractor like partially in like this because that's the easiest way to get the firing pin safety block back in the gun. But basically, I'll take this out just to show you how it slips out like this. It just sits in this little slot on the side of the gun like this. This little pin right here, this little plunger, actually holds it in place. So when you put it back together, you rest this back in there, push down on the pin, and it'll slide. That little loop on the extractor will actually slide over top of that pin, and I leave it like that to reassemble it because it just makes it easier to put your firing pin safety block back in there, and then just kind of click it back into place. So you take your firing pin safety block, take the new spring that you get from Sprinco, slip it in there. If you're wondering which way this goes, always remember this like pointy ledge over here. This actually engages your trigger bar, and that sits to the outside of the slide. So just remember that. Slip that bad boy in there, It should slip in there, and it should give it a couple pushes up and down and depress it and make sure that it moves freely in there. Hold it down, finish reinserting the extractor, and it should click into place and be held in there on its own. And then just make sure again that the firing pin safety block travels freely up and down, and that's it. All you got to do is reassemble your pistol and give it some test fires to make sure that it's functioning correctly, and go have some fun. Get this back together, and I'll actually do a couple of test pulls with my trigger gauge, show you guys what I get out of it. This is Sprinco's recoil system, in case you're wondering what recoil kit this is. Get this back in there, put it back together, put the slide, and we'll do a couple of trigger pulls with my Wheeler gauge here. See what we get out of it. That one is just under 3.5 pounds, and that seems to be pretty typical for what I'm getting out of this spring kit here. I'll do another pull just so y'all can see it. And again, just under 3.5 pounds, and that's pretty typical for what I'm getting out of the spring kits, and all of my PPQs is just about 3.5 pounds. It does vary a little bit depending on how well polished your internals are on your particular gun. But yeah, if you guys are interested in this kit, go ahead and check out Sprinco and tell them who sent you. Thanks, guys.